Good afternoon, everybody. Hello and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council budget hearings. I am Councilman Anthony Coghill and I chair the Committee for Public Safety and Wellness. For this hearing, we will hear from the Department of Public Safety, Bureau of Animal Care and Control, and the Bureau of Emergency Medical Services. I'd like to invite those from the Bureau of Animal Control to join us at the table. While you're joining us, I'll ask that our Budget Director, Peter McDevitt, give a brief overview of that department.
Thank you, Councilman. The mission of the Department of Public Safety, Bureau of Animal Care and Control is to serve the residents of the city of Pittsburgh by providing care, control, education, and resolutions to situations dealing with domestic animals and wildlife. The Bureau of Animal Care and Control's core services and programs include Title VI of the Pittsburgh Municipal Code Enforcement, collecting stray domestic animals, assisting in the resolution of neighbor disputes regarding animals, advising residents of their rights and responsibilities in relation to pet ownership, safely releasing non-rabies vector wildlife species to approved wildlife rehabilitation centers, implementing quarantine procedures for bite cases, removing and disposing of deceased animals, assisting residents with animals they may not be physically able to handle, managing the City of Pittsburgh's spay and neuter program, issuing citations and attend court hearings for the Title VI summary offenses and or act as a witness for cruelty or neglect cases, assisting police officers with investigation or removal of animals, and attend community meetings or events to educate residents about urban wildlife. A total of 17 positions are in the 2025 operating budget for animal care and control, which is an increase of 1 from last year for an assistant supervisor. That is an overall increase of just under $90,000 or 10.7%. And a summary of non-personnel changes, there's a $40,000 decrease in non-personnel expenses. That comes from a one-time allocation that was made in 2024. That was for, I believe, to see if we could bring vet services in-house. And that's all I have.
Hey, thank you, Director. Let's just introduce ourselves for the public, please, and then if you want a brief overview of what you would like to say, please, proceed accordingly.
Lee Schmidt, I'm Public Safety Director for the City of Pittsburgh.
Good afternoon, Charles Showers, Manager of Personnel and Finance for the Department of Public Safety.
And David Madden, Supervisor of Pittsburgh Animal Care and Control.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I didn't know if, David, is there something you wanted to highlight or say before we get into questions? Or, we don't expect some big presentation. We all know what you do, but if any of the three you want to add anything, please do so before we go to questions.
No, not at this time.
Okay. Charles?
And we do have a brief slide deck prepared to
go
over
good.
some stats and so on for animal control.
Let's cue that up then. Right?
And we can talk our way through that.
I wish that TV.
All right. We've already covered, thanks to Mr. McDevitt, we already covered much of the mission and services provided by Animal Care and Control.
Thank you.
Let's go into some of the statistics and organizational matters here. Here's the organizational chart for reference. The roster as currently constructed: 1 supervisor, 1 accounting specialist budgeted under Public Safety Administration, and 15 full-time animal care and control officers. And as previously noted, we are requesting 1 assistant supervisor to be added for 2025. Here's a list of some of our notable accomplishments. Dave, do you want to go into any more detail on?
Yeah, we just, it was an, I'm going to say not an abnormal year, but normal year as far as things went. Finally reached full staffing capacity. But since then, we've had some officers on various types of leave. We're able to rescue a deer from the Island Park Reservoir.
Wow.
We had to get into a small boat in order to do that, get that one out of there. But it got out alive and ran away on its own. Over 3 dozen injured or abandoned animals, wild animals, were taken to the Wildlife Center. And, we did help the Pittsburgh Fire rescue 3 cats and 1 dog from a house fire.
I'll also add, they implemented a new digital records management system, and we are finalizing installation of computer equipment in each of the vehicles, so the animal control officers will be able to do things digitally instead of by paper. And that will interface with some other systems in the future to help things be a little more efficient and effective and better tracking and statistical reports. So.
Okay, the next set of slides here is just a overview of some of the statistics from last year compared to this year. We have intake to humane animal rescue, some other intake statistics here. Dave, do you have any comments on any of this?
Yeah, we didn't really see an increase overall with any of the number of animals on the average. That's what we've been getting. Wild animals and dogs and cats pretty much holding steady from one year to the next.
And just some of the statistics also we're flipping through on the spay and neuter program, the rodent abatement program. We have a slide detailing the new software system that we're hoping to implement that we've already discussed. And then just to sort of finish out, we have, for reference, we have some of the 2024 budget detailed here, as well as the preliminary 2025 budget. And some of the differences have already been noted. The assistant supervisor addition, the removal of $40,000 that was originally for the proposed feasibility study, and there's also a $75,000 change for animal detention services. Currently it's split between police and animal control, and we're proposing that that be consolidated under animal control.
Mm-hmm.
And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. And with no further ado, I guess want to say Councilman Bobby Charland joined us here today. So thank you, Councilman Charland. And we're also joined by Councilwoman Barbara Warwick. And I'll start with you, Councilwoman Warwick, if you're ready with any questions.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for all your work over the year. It's always, Chief Madden, you're always very responsive. I appreciate it. We've, worked together quite a bit this year with some dog bite situations. I guess, well, the one thing I'd like to ask about is, because we had a big group of people come asking about the spay neuter program, and for cats in particular. So if you wanted to tell us about the plans for next year, or maybe whatever the updates are for that.
I don't know if you want to cover that today or tomorrow. It comes to standing committee, the contract for that.
Oh.
So.
Well.
However you all would.
Well,
like.
it does come tomorrow. If you don't mind, I'll just jump in. Yeah, I mean, that bill is in front of us tomorrow, and but I don't see why you can't just ask the simple questions about it. Like, is it going to continue? Is it not? That's going to be up to us, of course. But
yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, and just does it continue? Can people outside this? Do we have a thing for outside rescuers?
The cat will continue for sure. Dogs will be only done via income levels.
Okay.
And mostly that's just sustainability of the program. With the current budget for the program, we have to be cognizant of how many animals we can realistically do in a year,
sure,
and prioritize cats because of the the nature of how they breed, and that they're more commonly outside, whether they're owned or not owned. They're frequently outside versus most dogs don't roam quite as much. So, but those programs will continue into next year, and they'll be more expanded next year than they are, while we were kind of reworking the program.
Okay, so I guess, we can talk about that tomorrow when everyone's here. That's fine. As far as the rodent control, the rodent program, so that is for residents.
Yes.
With 4 or fewer units.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility of expanding that to some of our, I mean, how does that work? Is it just like bait is left out that the rodents
No,
eat?
it's rodent bait traps. There's poison traps. They're very small.
Okay,
And they leave them outside depending on the square footage of the property itself.
okay,
1 or 2 stations will be placed. And then at the end of 1 month, they'll actually go back and refill them. So they're actually, one bait trap is actually good for 2 months.
okay,
And each resident can get it done twice per year for free.
okay. Is there any way, or are we doing that at all in our encampments?
It's very difficult. Fort Pitt really doesn't want to just put traps down in areas, even though you can't really, I guess you could really, if you really wanted to get into the trap, but you'd have to break it apart and everything. The problem is that you don't really know where to put them in encampments, and it's actually attracting the rodents to there. So
okay.
we don't really want to start doing that.
Oh, I see, I see.
And it doesn't actually kill the rats right away. What it does is they eat the bait and they get it all over themselves, and they take it back to their nest and they spread it around that way, and eventually it helps to kill the nest.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, otherwise, we'd be picking up dead rats all over the city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that would be gross.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because I know I've seen, occasionally in the encampments, it can get, I've heard complaints from the people living there too, that the rats
Yeah,
can be.
I understand. I just don't think there's a way, at least with the way we currently do it, I don't think there's a way we could do that. We'd probably have to talk to Fort Pitt and see what they would recommend at some point.
Yeah, and we have discussed that with them. There have been certain locations that have been baited, but most of them along the rivers, it becomes very challenging. Just because of the rats' behavior, they typically are along the rivers anyhow. It's very common to see them there. And then the amount of sources of attractment, as Dave said, they don't want to attract more to an area either. But oftentimes, in business districts especially, it has to be kind of a very broad program that covers all that. And similar to, many of our encampments, there's a lot of challenges as to where they go. We have to make sure other animals wouldn't tear into it or anything like that. So it's, for right now at least, that's why we do residential, because then property owners can kind of monitor it and see that the trap's still there, that something didn't get into it, that nobody messed with it, those sorts of things. But
Yeah, I guess just always the reminder for the public that you do always have someone on call, right, for emergency situations,
Yes,
like a
we
bat
have
in the house or something like that.
Yeah, we have officers on duty 24/7, on-call officers after normal shifts are done, and then we have our emergency after-hours number on our voicemail on the phone if you call it in.
Okay,
And certainly if you just call 911, they page me directly since I'm the supervisor.
okay. Okay, well, I don't think I have
Thank
too
you,
many questions. You
Councilwoman
guys do
Warwick.
great work.
And
so.
I would just like to piggyback on one thing that Councilwoman Warwick, with just the subject of spade and neutering. I don't think we'll be discussing this tomorrow. We could, I guess, but in the past we found there was fraudulent people from outside the city coming in using Pittsburgh addresses to get their pet spayed and neutered. Have we addressed that? Have we found a way to kind of monitor that and control that? Or?
So the new system will require folks to attest that they,
Right.
well, I mean, they have to show us proof of residency anyhow, but they also have to attest that this is in fact their animal, not for the trap program, but for normal dogs or pet-owned cats. They have to attest that it is their animal, and we have a process that we've developed in which we will kind of do follow-ups with folks. The animal control officers can go out and talk to people, make sure everything went well,
Great.
to ensure that we are utilizing folks there. With the trapping program, they have to certify that they catch any cats that they bring are caught in the city and will be released back into the city.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Councilman Charlin?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot here on the animal care and control department. One of the questions I guess I did want to ask, I'm asking everyone, but I'm sure I know the answer for you, is how many of your employees have or work from home?
None.
That's what I would assume.
None. Now, my administrative assistant or my accounting specialist, she could work from home. And she has, I mean, during COVID, she was able to work from home 3 or 4 days a week, and she'd be come in one day or something like that. But for the most part, since we get calls into the office and calls over the computer through the 311 system, and then certainly calls on the radio, and the officers obviously can't work from home, and I don't work from home either.
Sure. Our contract with Fort Pitt, I don't remember ever seeing that come back up for renewal, but I'm sure it has. We've been working with them for a minute.
I believe it's usually just bid out under normal procurement policies, so it wouldn't necessarily
Yeah, I think it's
come up for as
the
a
annual
separate.
on that is how much?
It's just it's budgeted at 90,000, but it's not like a contractual limit. It's just sort of a set up as a commodities bid.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't necessarily come
It's like
up.
every time they do it, they get paid, but it doesn't. It's not like a.
Yeah, it's essentially.
Let's pretend I don't know what a commodities bid
Oh,
means.
it's like an office supply contract or something. We
Okay.
wouldn't actually it doesn't necessarily come before council as a separate piece of legislation. It just conducted through the regular bid processes.
Okay. One of the things that I know when I was a staffer that I would try to do, especially in areas where we were having issues with rodents, was to bait more city-owned property and put those in, so that we could, if we had a street that was having problems with rodents, bait all the city-owned properties on that street as an opportunity to kind of go after the rodents. Have we looked at the baiting of city-owned properties kind of proactively?
Baiting of city property is a DPW function, not through this program.
Really?
Yeah. So that's this building. Others they have whatever.
Sorry, city-owned property is an abandoned property.
Just abandoned properties.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't believe this contract covers that either. Through
No.
Really?
some other programs, perhaps they have done it in the past. We will, and we have done in certain areas. If a block is seeing a large population of rats,
Yeah.
we will work and bait multiple houses within there, but it is kind of a strategy. I know we did this with Councilperson Gross's office 2 years ago. Fort Pitt worked with her office and the neighbors to kind of come up with a strategy that wouldn't require baiting excessively, but would be effective, and it was effective at least for a period of time. So that's usually what this program does. As far as vacant properties, I don't believe Fort Pitt will do vacant.
They did in the past. I can say with certainty that they definitely did. It's been a while though.
Yeah.
Normally, we rely on, again, with it being a vacant or abandoned property, we're relying on somebody to call that in. So normally we won't. What we do encourage people to do is, to get on their community website and say, hey, I've noticed rats. We need more and more people, more and more neighbors to call 311. And that way we can saturate an area. And that way, even if the nest is inside the abandoned or vacant home, normally that's how it's being handled right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was essentially doing that, but in areas that have high density of vacant or abandoned city-owned properties.
Okay.
Most of my hilltop or the hilltop neighborhoods have that issue. So I could take an alley, pretty easily find 4 or 5 abandoned properties on there, get Fort Pitt to put some traps out, and that would usually help the other properties on the.
Yeah, it's something we'd have to talk to Fort Pitt
Yeah.
about, because it's something we're really not doing now.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. That I think is all I've got, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman Jarlin. So I just have a couple quick things. David, when a deer gets hit by a car, if it's on Banksville Road, which is a PennDOT road, they are responsible for picking it up.
No.
No.
We pick up on Banksville Road. The only roads we don't really pick up on are Route 28, the little parts that come into the, other than the little parts that come into the city itself, 79 in the Parkway. Otherwise, we pick up everywhere else.
Oh, so the state picks up on 79 in the Parkway.
79.
Why don't they pick up on all the state roads? Why is that our responsibility?
I'm not really
I mean,
sure, to be honest with you. I think
yeah.
because the city of Pittsburgh's been doing
Yeah,
it for so
I get
long,
it. Yeah.
they just
They
figure,
depend on you, like we do,
they
right?
just figure, yeah. Plus, we probably get a lot more calls than they do.
Yeah, right.
So as far as Banksville goes, for the
They
most
don't.
part,
They don't contribute financially to the disposal.
no, they don't.
Right. Right. Okay. Because I see, most of the time it's on state roads. I would say, it's everywhere, of course. But I have a herd of deer living in my backyard. There's about 10 trees, and it's amazing. They're everywhere. The I don't know if it's the right word, calling of deer. The controlled archery hunts. They've been successful.
Yes.
Yeah. That's good. Nobody's been hurt.
No.
Nope.
Yeah, good. We've donated 90% of them to people who are in need of food.
Yeah, actually, I just got the report today from most recent, so they're still averaging about 50% donation, over 364 outings with no safety incidents,
Great.
12,160 meals donated, and a total 136 harvests.
That's fine.
Good to see.
12,160 meals. What do? You take a deer, I guess, and how many steaks and chops come from that deer, and you figure out how many meals. Is that
Yep.
okay? Yeah.
Yeah, that's all from the USDA. So they
Sure. Oh,
calculate
okay.
all that
Good.
out.
Good. So David, you had 17 spots. We're adding one. That's budgeted already, or are we looking to put that in the budget?
That's in the
That's in the
2025 budget.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. That position is, what was that position?
That's the assistant supervisor. So
Assistant
since
supervisor.
I have been there, we haven't had an assistant supervisor.
Right.
So normally, if I have to take off, we have to pull another officer in from the field to cover in the office, and so
Right.
we have less,
Right.
one less officer in the field.
Got it. Good. And David, when I see a dead, I use deer because they're big and they're most noticeable, I guess. But any animal, I guess I could be referring to. Does your people, will they automatically, if they ride by it, stop and retrieve it, or do they have to wait for a 311 report or a phone call?
Well, we have the officers out in the field, and certainly the police and everybody else calling in. Normally, within 1 to 2 days, we will pick it up. The only difference would be on Sundays. We no longer run a dead animal truck on Sundays. So if we get reports after 3 o'clock on a Saturday for a dead deer, I can still have officers move it off to the side so it's not causing any problems.
Right.
But then it normally won't be picked up till Monday.
Right. But you do that proactively. It doesn't have to be reported by somebody.
It's always nice to have it reported
Yeah.
because, officers are driving around and so is the dead animal truck driver, but if they don't see them, then they don't know to pick them up. So the biggest thing is having people. We normally have on main roads, it's not unusual to have 5 to 10 calls a day about one dead deer.
Right. So you get it's reported.
Yep.
Don't really have to rely on your folks seeing it.
Yes.
Yeah. And so one last question is, if a deer is clipped by a car, I've seen this dozens and dozens of times, is injured, hobbles off into the woods or is sitting by the roadside injured, and then somebody, usually a police officer, comes and
Yeah, so we'll send officers up first as quickly as we can to assess what's going on. A lot of times, deer can actually live with one broken leg for a very long period of
know.
time, and we have known deer with 2 broken legs
Yes.
that lived a very long period of time.
seen it. Yep.
So they can get up and hobble off, and they're perfectly fine. Well, not perfectly fine, but fine enough. But if it's unable to move, or it's too injured to move, or any number of other things, and my officers arrive first, they will then call for a police squad to come up and humanely euthanize it,
Right.
and then we'll send over the dead animal truck to retrieve it.
Got it. Okay, thank you. You guys have anything else or follow up? Please, Councilwoman Warwick.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't really a budget, but just because I always bring it up. So, we had the incident in Lincoln Place with that dog that was
Yes.
just really, did major damage to, I think, 2 people for sure, and possibly.
dogs.
And 2 dogs, right? I mean, like, people had to have surgery.
Dog
Like, it was,
attacking another dog?
It was actually
Dog-
2 different bites and 2 separate dog attacks.
yeah, yeah.
People?
Yes.
People, yeah, yeah. And, and it was, you know, it was all over the neighborhood Facebook page. It was, you know, it was a major issue. And, you know, we put an article in the homepage kind of explaining what you need to do. And still, I have to say I definitely find it frustrating. I'll see on Facebook people still being like, oh, a loose dog. Oh, hey, I got him. Put him in my yard. You know what I mean? It's like people really should be calling 911 because, you know, dogs getting out is not, there's not a lot we can do about it. But if animal control comes and takes the dog, that at least is like
Well, then at least we know who the owner is, and if it
Right.
becomes a frequent type thing, then we can start issuing more citations. Yeah, we tell that to people all the time, and they're like, well, we want to be neighborly, and we understand
Right.
that, we do. But, you know, if dogs are allowed to continuously get out and get loose, that's when they start looking for trouble. And that's
Right.
when they normally will find it, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's, I mean, I wish there was a way we could sort of communicate to, like, the neighborly thing to do is to call 911 and report the dog loose, and then that way the owner at least has to go through the hassle of coming and getting the dog, and then gets the, you know,
Citation,
the citation and the conversation about keeping their dog
yes.
enclosed on their property. Anyway, that's just my little bee in my bonnet.
What do we do? Arrest the dog? I mean, what happens?
No, we just pick it up and take it to the Humane Animal Rescue.
No, I mean,
where
if the dog is alive and is attacking people, and does that become a police matter?
No, it's still an animal care and control matter. The problem is most people are very reluctant to come forth and file what are called witness citations, because obviously my animal control officers don't see those instances. And then all of a sudden, you know, the dog, well, we know for sure this dog attacked before, but we don't have a report of it. Well, now it's attacked again. Okay, we'll go over and take care of it. We want you to take the dog. I'm sorry, we legally can't do that. I mean, a judge has to declare a dog to be dangerous first, and then if it breaks one of those rules, of which there are many, then the judge can order the dog to be seized and humanely euthanized. But that very rarely happens.
Anything else, Councilman Charlotte?
Just very quickly, do you have any vacancies within your team right now?
No, not right now, but you know, if the assistant supervisor position gets approved,
Okay. Yeah.
that position will be open.
How will that position help facilitate your workload?
It'd be a huge help, as I explained a little bit earlier. One is if I have to be out of the office for any reason, vacation, sick, down here for meetings, then normally a lot of times we have to pull another animal care and control officer off the road.
Gotcha.
to help Coralie in the office, my accounting specialist. Also, there are two days a year where actually are holidays for Coralie and I, but not for the officers. So, you know, might have to work something out with those. For me, it would be a huge help because I've been on call 24/7, 365 since June 1st of 2016.
That makes sense.
So,
All right.
be a huge help to me as far as that goes. But it's another level of supervision. It's another level where, you know, I could really count on that person, that position, maybe to go out and help train new officers and things along that line. Because, you know, the officers themselves are doing the training, which is fine. It's worked for years, but they're all members of the same union.
Gotcha.
So, you know, an assistant supervisor obviously wouldn't be a member of that union, so that would certainly help also.
And they're Teamsters, is that right? Is that what I saw?
Yes, they are Teamsters.
Okay, cool. Very much appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you, David. You've been at this a long time now, right?
For this position, yes, since June 1st of 2016, but I've been in the business 45 years.
Yeah, so if we approve this position, it'll, in a sense, give you a break, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, right. I think you deserve that. So you won't have any problems with me as well. So, so thank you all for being here. If everybody's finished questioning, we don't have anybody online. Okay. Thank you, David, and I assume you two gentlemen are going to be staying, right, for EMS. But thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm gonna have to ask Charles how to tie that tie. That is a cool knot you got there, man.
YouTube. YouTube has all the answers.
YouTube. I thought you said YouTube. I was like, this is the laziest tie knot there. What's
Mine's
that called?
always crooked.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a post agenda on that.
Yeah. Well, let's bring Charles in for tying post agenda.
Bobby, I just never take mine off. I loosen them, you squeeze it off, and then you put it back on.
Give me a month to practice.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so I'd like to invite the Bureau of Emergency Medical Services to join us at the table. While they are joining us, I'll ask our Budget Director, Peter McDevitt, again to give a brief overview of the department.
Thank you, Councilman. The Bureau of Emergency Medical Services is dedicated to the reduction of morbidity and mortality of residents and visitors through the provision of advanced and basic life support pre-hospital care, medically directed rescue, and transportation of the ill and injured. The Bureau of EMS is divided into the following divisions: the Ambulance Division, Special Events Operations, Rescue Division, Special Operations, and Training. In the 2025 operating budget in the general fund, there's a total of 219 positions. That includes 217 total uniformed employees. And it's also notable that there is a tentative agreement in place with the union that was signed on November 7th. So the rates are subject to full ratification, and I believe the vote on that is tomorrow. So look forward to that. Overall, there's a just over $1 million increase in 2025 from 2024. That's about 7%. And a summary of non-personnel changes. Overall, there's about $1.3 million decrease in non-personnel budgeted items. That includes $57,000 increase for supplies, $5,200 decrease in property, and a $1,363,810 decrease in miscellaneous that comes from a decrease in grants for the PA-DHS Medicare cost share. In the capital budget, EMS doesn't have any specific lines, but they do have a couple of related deliverables. Under DPW facilities, they have the Fire Station 20 Medic 12 construction for $12.25 million. And in the ELA, there is a line item for one ALS ambulance. And there's a couple of trust funds for EMS. There's the EMS Reimbursable Events Trust Fund that have payroll reimbursements are to be used for payment of premium pay for EMS personnel only. Fees and other rentals can be used to support the Bureau of EMS. The fund is also a pass-through for non-city EMS companies that are hired by Heinz Field, PNC Park, etc. for coverage at their events. So you actually see that a lot in the invoices whenever we have a bunch of reimbursement payments. That's coming through that pass-through. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Director. Chief, would you and Jeffrey please introduce yourselves for the public?
Hi, thanks for having us. My name is Amara Gilchrist, and I'm the chief for the Bureau of Emergency Medical Services.
Good afternoon. I'm the deputy chief of Pittsburgh EMS, Jeff Tremmel.
Great. Well, thank you both for being here. And before I get on the questions, let me just congratulate you on the Freedom House. 9 of 9 recruits graduating. That's sensational. And I love it that we're recruiting from within the city of Pittsburgh. And I know there are other issues that I hope we cover here, but I just wanted to congratulate you on that before we start. So we'll go right into presentation. Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. You have a presentation of some sort. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to rob you of that, Councilman Charlin. Yeah.
We worked hard on this one.
Some popcorn? You want some popcorn too?
Charles works hard on these. Oh, okay.
The chief works very hard.
Okay. Well, the chief works very hard on a lot of things. I was trying.
Thing never works. So just to reiterate what Mr. McDevitt said, he gave you a background of our services and what our mission is. If you could just forward to our data highlights, we'll just get into the meat and potatoes. As you can see, we've had a steady $2 million increase in revenue every year. And the deputy and I were actually just on a conference call right before this hearing, and we're actually projected to make $22 million by the end of this year. So that was actually a $4 million increase from last year. The next slide represents our organizational chart to include the Freedom House EMT Academy. The bottom actually now should have an additional BLS unit. We actually have 5 on daylight now. So that's very big. That's something that hasn't been before.
Chief, can you just explain what BLS is?
So BLS is basic life support. Those
Okay.
are our EMTs, and ALS are paramedics, advanced life support.
Understood.
Currently, our roster paramedics, as you can see, we do have some understaffing with the paramedics. We're at a deficit of 29. However, for the first time in, I think since we've had EMTs, we're actually over budgeted by 5, which gives us the opportunity to train within and to actually grow our own paramedics. So this is very exciting. As you mentioned, the Freedom House program, thank you very much for congratulations. It's definitely a team effort between public safety, having the support of council, thank you. Also human resources and our training division. So it's definitely a collaborative effort that is near and dear to my heart just because of where the Bureau of Emergency Medical Services actually started from. As you mentioned, we did have a 100% success rate with the first class of 9 individuals who are all fully employed with the city of Pittsburgh currently as EMTs. Our second class started September 23rd with a tentative graduation date. Well, actually not a graduation date, but they will be released to full-time EMT positions in mid-December. So we also expect to have another class at the beginning of the year.
That's all Freedom House.
All Freedom
Okay,
House.
gotcha. Beautiful.
The good thing or the unique thing about that is that these are city residents. We're bringing prosperity back into the city. People who didn't think that the jobs were available to them through emergency medical services, which initially were not, because they had to come in with their certifications, and now they don't have to do that. So I'm really proud of the program, and thank you all for the support. I would also like to put on record that in the year 2024, we've actually hired more people this year in the last 4 years combined in our bureau. I can attribute that, one, to the Freedom House program, also to the fact that with our shorting staffage, we really worked hard with HR to shorten the hiring process. We rely heavily on the probationary period instead of some of the other hurdles that applicants had to jump through before. Typically, we lost a lot of candidates during the hiring process because it's a 6 month wait. I know myself could not go without employment for 6 months. So decreasing that has really helped get people and retain people. Also, another accomplishment is the fact that our BLS contingent has not been fully staffed for the five years. It was implemented in 2017. In 2017, we were fully staffed for, I would say, at least 6 months until people started becoming paramedics. And then it actually cut our BLS division in half. So now, not only over budgeted, but we actually have 4 to 5 units that run constantly on daylight, which everybody, I'm sure, heard on the news about a medic unit being removed out of service because of staffing issues to try to decrease the workload on the paramedics. However, it was not mentioned that with that one unit being taken out, there were several added in that were BLS units. So that it's something that I want to clarify. None of the city residents are going without care. We also have 2 units on nights, on the night shift, which we haven't had in years. So the city is actually fully covered, actually over covered. We're also making it our plan to use our resources more effectively and efficiently, and by that we'll use data. We have less call volume at night, as well as most of the calls that Pittsburgh EMS runs do not require a paramedic response. So we're going to utilize our resources more effectively and efficiently. The one thing that the Freedom House EMT Academy has also done is boosted our diversity, which is extremely important, particularly in jobs of public safety. I've always remarked that the only way we build trust within our communities is that we make sure there's fair and equal representation of everybody in the community. So it's created a paid pathway to education and employment, which it's very it's a very good I think investment that the city is making in this program. The next thing I would like to mention, and this just occurred to me yesterday. One of my college professors, Dr. Robert Skurdick, had actually congratulated me, and there's a letter here if you would like a copy of it. Once he saw the publicity that the Freedom House program was getting, and he said that each one of those students now is entitled to 9 college credits. So, and that's huge because in the past, if you took an EMT program, you would only get 3 college credits. So now you're getting 9. And with the initiatives that we would like to push forward, which eventually down the road opening up an internal paramedic program, that would garner our graduates with 39 college credits. The next slide represents our diversity breakdown in the year of 2022. Becoming the chief of this department, it has been extremely important to me to make sure we have a diverse group of employees, so everyone knows that these jobs are available to them. So these numbers represent the people that were employed in 2022. Just quickly, 70% of our workforce was white male in 2022. 19% was white female. And you can see the 4, 4, and 3 were black female, black male, and other specified, non-specified ethnicities, which would be Latino, Asian, etc. The next slide represents currently where we're at. These numbers are not, these are actually people that we are employed. They're not applicants, I'm sorry. They're actually employed with the Bureau. So as you can see, that number has significantly changed from the 70% white male to 57%, 29% white female, and we've actually increased our diversity numbers between black males, black females, and the unspecified ethnicity. The last slide represents what the projected numbers are. We have a class Freedom House students, and of course right now I did not include them in this because until they complete class and all the requirements, we can't consider them full-time city employees. They're actually classified as temporary. So this is what the projected numbers with them and the last hiring class that we will have in December will be. The next slide represents what I was talking about as far as this is the most people that personnel we have hired in the last 4 years combined. In 2022, we hired a total of 7 people for the whole year. 2023, combined paramedics and EMTs, there were 13. This year alone, between paramedics and EMTs, we've hired 36. So that's huge. We have definitely ramped up recruitment and retention efforts. One of the things that we've done for retention is, of course, promoting crew chiefs, trying to have programs to get them in the position to be able to lead the Bureau in the future. Our upcoming initiatives, my pipe dreams, of course, is to open up a advanced EMT academy and a paramedic academy. So, and I think those are all things that are doable just because of what we've been able to accomplish with the EMT academy. The next few slides are data highlights for our clinical accomplishments. I won't go through the meat and potatoes. However, Pittsburgh nationally, and I tout this because we are a hospital of cities and colleges, and we are always on the advanced edge of medicine, and we do a lot of studies within our bureau. We take our clinical accomplishments very seriously. Our paramedics and our EMTs are highly trained, and they are the reason that the survival rates that we have for cardiac arrests and strokes and traumatic injuries are as high as they are. So I think that's pretty much all I have to say. I don't know if the deputy would like to, and then I'll let.
You don't have a speech or anything, Jeff?
No speech.
No.
So I'll let Charles go over the budgetary items.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. As with the previous presentations, we just have the 2024 and 2025 preliminary budgets just for reference as part of the presentation. Once we get there. It's 2024, 2025, and that should do it. So thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry. You finished. Oh, I thought you were going to go on about the budget or something. I didn't know. So, before I open it for questioning, I will say we are fortunate in Pittsburgh for all of our public safety. You know, animal control. David has been here forever. Nobody knows his business. Paramedics. I always say they're an elite force in Pittsburgh. They always have been. I mean, dating back to when I was a little kid, I just remember, and everybody's so nice and polite, and they're always there just to help. And of course, fire and police, second to none. So, and I love your projection. I love I know we have some challenges ahead of us in the short term, but I really feel like you have a grip on things. And this Freedom House thing is like an elite college, I feel like, for people to attend and to go through, you know. So I want to talk more about that. But I'll start with, do either of you have any time constraints or need to go first or second? Okay, great. So we'll start with you, Councilman Charlin.
Oh, no problem. No, that's that happens here. I wanted to start off again by echoing the other sentiments that other members have made. This Freedom House Academy is truly unbelievable, and the fact you were able to stand it up as quickly as you were, I think this is this is a prime example of government working well, and we had we have an issue with staffing and everything in the city, right? But the way that we were able to move so quickly to take that that issue there and find a way to solve it, to grow our own, to build our own pathways, to hear that you have ideas, to grow Freedom House and to actually growing our own paramedics. I mean, if another director or chief were to say that to me, I'd be like, well, that's a nice dream, but you have a track record of doing it. And I think that speaks to the credits that employees were, or that are now employees are able to get from Point Park. I mean, that's remarkable. And if we do anything right in the city, that would be the thing that I would say has gone the most right in this year. So I really want to applaud you for that.
Well, I really appreciate that. It's funny because when I was getting appointed, I talked to the director about it, and I told him that was my 5-year plan. But we did not have the luxury with the way the staffing was gone to wait 5 years. So like I said, I really appreciate all the support from the public safety director, from the mayor, from you all as city council members, because it could not have been done without, the collective effort. So thank you.
Well, that's very humble of you to say, but without you pushing that through, there's no way that something like this would have happened. So really want to give you a lot of credit there. One question I do have, I know that you have a lot of the similar problems that environmental services and fire and everyone else has with the fleet. And, not, this maybe is a bad analogy, but bear with me. The same way that environmental services always tells me, it's like every day is it's a matter of manpower and a matter of equipment. And are you running into the same problem with the issues there of not knowing what trucks are going to be working today and how that, and if a truck is down, that this might take us out for a while? How precarious is our fleet situation there?
To speak frankly, I think that the fleet situation is dire. I realize that we're behind the 8 ball. As far as when COVID hit, there were so many things that were pushed back and were unavailable. We actually have trucks that were still owed from 2022,
Okay.
which, and I want to give a huge shout out to TransDev, because they are limited with what they have to work with.
I apologize. TransDev?
That's the city garage, the folks that were
Gotcha.
that fix our vehicles. They're doing the best that they can with what they have, but production is still slow. There's money that's allotted that we just can't get the trucks in. I had we met with the ELA board, and I showed them a very shocking video, which I think stunned them, and I understand that there's financial constraints. However, I showed them a video of a 2-year-old that had drowned, and this is actually a real story. And the ambulance service was experiencing the vehicle issues that we all are across the city. That truck broke down a couple blocks from the hospital. So the paramedics had to actually take that child while performing CPR on their stretcher and run them to the hospital. That's what I don't want to see happen. But yes, it is very challenging. The deputy is in charge of our fleet operations for the borough, so I don't know if he would like to expound upon that.
If I could just make sure for clarity, that did not occur in the city of Pittsburgh.
Didn't happen in the city.
With the child.
No.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I was
It didn't.
not that it should happen anywhere.
However, it is I
right.
think it is a concern. Anybody with a large fleet like ours, with all the concerns we have, that we have to face, that potential is there, but It did not occur in the city.
Wow.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. I was thinking it was like, based on our hospitals, like, were they running up the hill? And okay. But yeah, I mean, to your point, we spend money on a lot of things at this table and through this room here. We can't have people dying because a truck can't get there, a truck breaks down, or a truck can't get there in the first place, or I'm sure there's contingencies that your department has figured out, but it's the same with fire. That it just these are the basic things that a city is required to provide. These are not nice to haves. These are absolutely mandatory things. So am I hearing correctly that it's not necessarily a money problem as much as it is a production problem?
I would say it's both. It's a lot of other municipalities, everybody else in the country bought a ton of public safety vehicles whenever they got COVID money. We didn't do that as much. So that has pushed production for these kind of things out years instead of months. And we've just historically underinvested in our fleet.
I also would like to add that, yes, and I'm sorry I scared everybody. No, that call did not happen in the city of Pittsburgh. However, we have frequently, and we actually stopped keeping track of it, we frequently have had patients in the back of the truck, and the truck has broke down. We have frequently had medics going to calls, and on the way to the call, the truck has broke down. So it's definitely not out the realm of possibility that could happen. Knock on wood, it has not, but
it has happened that we've had maybe not a child drowning scenario, but that we've had other scenarios where the truck has broken down and we've had a patient in the back.
yes.
To the point that you don't keep track of it anymore?
Well, it's happened so frequently we don't. We constantly have trucks out of service. As parts are limited, they are actually scavenging off of old trucks or trucks that they don't have parts for. They'll take parts off of that truck to put it on another truck just to get it back on the road. And their hands are tied. They are working and doing the best that they can. So I don't want to put any fault on TransDev. They really work with us, and I know that we are a bureau that really keeps in contact with them daily to check on our fleet. And like I said, the deputy, he's in charge of fleet management for our department, for our bureau, and he can speak to the relationship that we have with TransDev.
We do have an excellent relationship with TransDev. The manager, Dwayne, he'll call me frequently in the evenings and even on a Saturday to give me updates if our trucks go down and they have guys coming in on a weekend. I can't really add much more than what the chief already said. The only thing I do want to clarify is we do have a frontline 911 fleet service, and Councilman, to your question, we have already went into our special event trucks a couple times to assist the primary trucks. The special event trucks are for the concerts, the football games, and so forth. They're pretty much not used except on special events, special occasions. We've had to the point where our spare units were down for repairs, as well as a couple of our primary trucks were down for repairs, and we had to dig into our special event trucks to actually run daily calls. So it is unfortunate. The chief did allude to, we have 5 trucks that are owed to us. They're already paid, not owed by the city, owed by the company that's building them. There are 2 currently in right now. We're hoping to get them out in, I'll say December, beginning of January. But we are still waiting for the line of the company to open up its schedule to get the 3 additional ones in. And I believe we were slated for 2 for this year. That's not even, for 2024, that's not even slated for moving forward, just because we're owed 5 total.
How do the special events trucks differ from day-to-day trucks?
They're smaller.
Smaller.
Instead of like an F-550 and a smaller, a bigger box, the special event trucks are F-350s in a smaller box.
Well, just out of curiosity, why are they smaller for special events?
Because most of the special events don't really do the transports. They basically go do the standbys.
Okay, gotcha.
In an emergency situation at a special event, they will transport. But typically, it's not those units that are doing the transports.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
And I will just wanted to add that most of the venues, we have like medical rooms there. Like at Active Shore Stadium or PNC Park, there's actual physical like medic rooms there that we have equipment, equipment, or equipment that is owned by the venue that we use there. So.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. I do want to ask, I know that we took a station offline, and I know you mentioned that in your briefing, but I've also heard about rotating blackouts on stations, and I don't think that's something that we as council know about, and maybe we do, but maybe I just don't. There are many things get by me. So tell me about the rotating blackouts.
So typically during peak vacation season, which is during the summer or on the weekends, if we do not have enough staffing to cover the units, they're put out of service. It may, I think the most this summer have been like maybe 3 units that have been out.
Three additional units taken out of service.
3 additional units. However, a lot of times it's not for the whole shift. It may be for half of the shift. And our district chiefs have become very skilled in, jockeying around the manpower. So if there is a unit in the South Hills out from, let's say, 6 a.m. to like 12 p.m., then they'll make sure they're on the back end that unit is in service, and maybe somewhere else in the city one is taken out of service, just to make sure there's adequate coverage for the city. The one good thing with the BLS units is because we're overstaffed with them, they don't go out of service. So just seeing how that model is working well, I've said it time and time again, it's a problem that we have to attack from all angles, and that angle seems to be the best. And, hopefully down the road when some other things happen, that'll free up some more rights that we would have to manage the schedule a little bit better.
I mean, so now that we're out of the summer season, are we still facing those roving blackouts?
Actually, this weekend, we've actually had a surplus of people, even like today. Everything's in service. We have actually 5 EMT units, and we usually have 13 ALS units, and then you have 5 additional units, so that's 18 units that are on the street today.
Well, that's great to hear. I do think the public needs to know more about these blackouts, because when I learned about it, I was like, this seems like something I should be aware of. So fire does a pretty good job of informing me when, and it's not that the house will be down or anything. It's that a couple of situations where instead of having a truck there, they've had to have an SUV there for a period of time while a truck is being fixed. I usually, am informed when that happens. It would be helpful if EMS can let us know that, hey, Medicaid is going to be down for the day to day or down for the night to night, just so we're aware of, so we're aware and we can help stress to the public how dire some of our circumstances are in the city here in 2024.
I can definitely include you on that email chain. I notify my higher ups every time that happens, just so they're aware.
Sure. Makes sense. The other question I had is something else I recently learned in EMS. And I'm sure that there are union considerations here. But that, if I understand this correctly, your ALS units are incentivized to work special events instead of working their regular shifts. The overtime pay that they would get from being at like Heinz Field is more valuable to them, so that we will, if I understand it correctly, we'll call for additional help from like suburban units, and then our workers will be working special events. Am I correct on that?
That's actually a fallacy.
Okay,
That's something that we are correcting through negotiations, which I can't get into that. But we do utilize outside services to come in, and we probably always will, even if we were up to full staffing. There are certain events that we require regional help, like the marathon. We need 30 units, 30 medic units, which we don't have that. I don't know any service that does that. We do require support. For a Steelers game, for example, it takes 25 physical bodies to work inside the stadium. And we at least would like to have 3 to 4 transport units, because you get a lot of calls at the stadium. Acrisure Stadium's like a little city whenever football is on. And then in addition to that, there may be other things going on around the city, and we still have to staff the trucks in the city. So
when there's the 25 bodies at Acrisure, are those our employees, or are those people that we're bringing in, or is it a mix?
it's a mix.
It's a mix. What is it, the majority, or is 50-50? How does that break down?
I will say at times it's been 50-50. At times it's all been city employees. It's never been all outside agencies, because our personnel know the staff members at the stadium. They know where the equipment is. They know how to get to certain places that other folks who are not familiar with the stadium may not know. So most often, if it is a 50-50 split, one of our personnel will be paired with someone else that's a local.
Gotcha. And when that happens, when there's the marathon, I feel like I run into Director Schmidt on these days, but those terrible weekends when there's like event, political rally, Steelers game, Pitt, everything all falling on the same weekend. Do we have regional backup? Did they come to staff our medic stations, our regular stations, or are they just at those events?
No, they're at the events.
Okay, so if I'm at home and I have to call 911, 100% of the time it'll be be Pittsburgh EMS coming to me.
No, that is not true, because there's times, even like today, we're fully staffed. If the city gets really busy, we have to call in mutual aid.
Okay.
Likewise, if Ross Westview is busy, we will provide mutual aid for them. It's something that the services do. But if you're in the city limits, 9 times out of 10, you're getting a city unit. But they don't come in to staff our medical stations.
I see. Okay. And then when Ross comes in, how does the billing work for that? I mean, how do we bill that?
So they would be billed the same as a city resident. As far as I know, it's a courtesy that they're helping us out. So if you could look at it from the stance, like when they come to work, like at a Steelers game, mm-hmm. Any transports they do, they keep the money for the transport. That's something that they can bill from their ambulance service. However, we have had instances where if we had a mutual aid unit come in, and a bill was inadvertently sent to one of our citizens, they contact us, and of course the bill is adjusted because that, a city medic unit in all likelihood would have taken them. So they're built just as if a city ambulance took them to the hospital. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but they don't pay. We as a city don't pay for Ross. We don't. There's no exchange from us paying Ross for Ross coming to take someone out of Brighton Heights. Am I
Correct. No, so all city residents that are transported we bill their insurance, and then we accept that as payment in full, whatever the insurance pays. Through our mutual aid agreements, Ross, if they come into the city, they do the same for our city residents. There's no exchange of money between us and those agencies.
okay?
There is, which you guys see on your invoices, when they work a special event, rather than 5 entities or 3 or 4 different entities billing the Steelers for a football game, we will bill them for all of the entities that work that game, and then we divvy out that money accordingly.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. Well, this is going to be the dumbest question I'm going to ask, but I'm asking all the departments. Do you have anyone in your department working from home?
From home?
Yes.
No. No. I mean, I would like to give a shout out to all of our uniformed personnel, because particularly during COVID, they were here every single day. We had some of our office staff, including like some of our administrative assistants and things, they had the luxury of being able to do that, but our public safety personnel were in these streets every single day taking care of people, and I couldn't be prouder of them.
You lead a great unit, and you're a great leader to do that. So
I really
we're
appreciate
very
that.
lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Charlin. And, just to follow up on while it's fresh in my mind, the mutual aid from other departments. And like, as you said, Director, we just get one bill or we send the Steelers or whatever Pirates one bill. But are their rates different than ours? Do they have to go by our rates then, or how's that work?
Yeah, so we bill based on the rate that's in our contract for those services. And then those services use that to pay their staff. And
unlike many other departments that we have, I think our paramedics and EMTs are probably on the higher end compared to some of the suburbs. So we don't necessarily have the problem where Ross Township might make
more than
$80 an hour and ours are making $30. So it's really beneficial to them, but they're getting billed by our rate more so, and so it's not a problem. Like, hey, we pay better than this, so it's not an issue.
Right.
Great. Okay, thanks. Councilwoman Warwick, if you're ready.
Yeah, sure. Well, so thank you very much for being here and for all your hard work. So just to start with the Freedom House EMT Academy, I was at this is just such a remarkable achievement. I was at the graduation of the first round, and I mean, just like the emotion of the graduates, and to see how hard they had worked, and you could really tell that there were a few of them that maybe didn't think that they were going to get it done, but they got it done. And it was just really incredibly moving. And I mean, really hats off to you, and also to you, Director, and Mayor Gainey for saying we are going to do this, right? Because that program, in addition to helping boost our, your numbers, right, in terms of just staffing, right, for public safety, it also is creating careers for Pittsburgh kids, who have historically not had access to those types of careers. And that is one of the primary goals of this administration. And really this is a stellar example of that sort of being, that goal kind of being intertwined in city operations as a whole. So it was really fantastic. So kudos to you. And I know that they all call you Mom. I think that's
They call us Mom and Pop.
right. Yeah. So that's great. And I want to just kind of remind folks. Well, I guess so. I have some other. So as far as the ambulances go, so we're budgeted for one this year, right? One new one. For 25. For 2024. But we're waiting for 5 paid to be delivered. Yes. So how many ambulances do we have now?
What?
Well, I mean, a functioning, I guess, operational.
Well, we have 13 frontline units as far as ALS units. I don't believe that all of them, I should have looked at the vehicle sheet before we left, are not in service right now. Some of them at their dealership, some of them are awaiting parts. And then we have the 5 EMT units and 2 heavy rescue trucks.
Okay, and then there's 5 coming. In a perfect world, how many more do you need? Yeah.
And we also have backups. How many spares?
We do have spare. Sorry, we have 8 spares.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the primary units are using some, and the spares are older than the primary, and they're actually down for repairs. The city garage, Transdev, they've had to put 2 engines in 2 of the outdated spare units, so they're sinking money into it. But that's what I was saying. There have been times that our front lines have been down, all the spares have been either used or down, being used or down, and we've dipped into the special event trucks to run primary calls.
And I mean, in a perfect world, how many how many would you
said
have?
Perfect, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. In a reasonable world, in a world where everything is functioning and you're not stressing about vehicles.
I mean, I would like to see at least 8 new units. Yeah. I mean, just because we have the 5 that are coming.
And would that 5 be included in those 8, or do you mean 8 on top of?
8 on top.
So the 5 that are coming plus another 8.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
Well,
I would just to kind of have.
What that would do is take our primary units that we're using daily that are breaking down and get rid of our spare trucks that are even older. Some of them are 2013, some of them are 2014 with a couple 100,000 miles on it. So that's why they're needing engines and so forth. So the primaries would become the spares.
Okay, I mean, that's just the kind of, and then an ambulance, at least what's budgeted for one at this point in time is, $575,000 for one. Okay, it's just to kind of have an idea of, so there's backup service available from the boroughs and the county too, or does the county have?
It's just the surrounding communities.
Just the surrounding boroughs,
so
okay.
like Ross will come into the north side.
Okay.
Eastern area will come into like Homewood, Wilkin,
Got it.
that area.
Okay, and what about the hospitals? Are there any like private ambulance services that
No, none of
do
the
911 calls? No.
none of the hospitals have emergency ambulances. They have some transport units that will do
Inter-hospital transfers,
yeah,
right?
inter-hospital. And there are private Sands, City of Pittsburgh, and Penn Hills, maybe one other in the county. They're no municipal based.
Right.
They're all private nonprofits or for-profit that contract with the municipality.
Okay, but none of those serve Pittsburgh.
Eastern area would be the only one that comes in that's a private corporation, but they have a contract with Wilkinsburg, so they have an ambulance in Wilkinsburg. That's the one who will come in here occasionally.
And then that's the same process where it's like our residents don't get billed, or their insurance gets billed, but they don't pay the. So all of that to say, I just to kind of underscore for for the public, the fact that we have that, and it's funny because that's like the history of the Freedom House, right? The fact that we have this at all in our city is extraordinary, right? I mean, I always use this example. I was in northern Michigan with my youngest son, and he, whatever, I had to get, he needed to take an ambulance from, one place to another. And, we had a $3,000 bill for that trip. I mean, it was somewhat of a rural area, but nonetheless. So the fact that in the city of Pittsburgh, you have you break your leg, or you have a heart attack or a stroke or really anything, or even anything at all, right? The fact that an ambulance is going to come and is going to get you to the hospital quickly, and you don't need to worry. If you have insurance, great, that'll cover whatever that covers, but that you're not going to pay any extra is extraordinary. So with that in mind, I do kind of want to ask, because this is always, and Director, this is gonna, and I will ask it again at the other bureaus, the meetings for the other bureaus, but how many calls do you answer a year? Like, how many calls? I mean, even if it's just a rough.
We transport approximately 65,000 patients a year. We respond to over 100,000 calls a year. And I say we respond to because that is, you go and someone fell on the floor, they need lifted up,
right.
Or they're not calling to get transported to the hospital.
Right.
But yes, so approximately 65,000 calls a year.
Okay, so wait, so that's 100,000 calls without transport, and then 65,000 with transport?
That's in the 100,000 encompasses
Okay,
the
so
transport calls as well.
right. Okay, so 100,000 calls a year, and you have 217 uniformed employees.
Correct. But that
Budgeted.
also, budgeted. We have less than that, but that's
Okay.
what's budgeted.
So how many employees do we? I mean, and again, this is all just rough numbers.
So probably I would say 178. Wait a minute, let me make sure. Because
That's close. 'Cause we're down 29 medics. And we're plus 5.
about 178. When you say uniformed personnel, that also includes like the administrative
Right, sure.
staff. So
And each call, is that two people in a truck? So there's two people per call.
yes.
Okay, so, whoops, sorry, 178. So 100,000 divided by what? We'll say 90. Yeah? So that's 1,111. I mean, this is all rough numbers, right? Per call, calls per person per year, or per, team per year. At any rate, how many calls, if you happen to know, does our fire bureau answer for EMS calls? I.e. non-fire, but EMS.
I don't have those in front of me, but we can make sure we have them for Thursday.
We'll ask on Thursday. And because that is one thing. So, and again, I want to reiterate with EMS. Okay. It is my opinion that the way we organize public safety, not just in Pittsburgh, but everywhere, is totally backwards, right? Because no matter what is going on, no matter what the emergency, right? Now, I understand that a fire is you need a fire truck, but the reality is a fire is not something that happens every day, right? A fire is exceptional. And I don't, and I understand you need those, and this is just sort of more of a philosophical discussion, perhaps. Police respond when something is, something's happening, but the issue is the people being injured, and that's EMS, right? That's who you want. That's who you want there. When in the true life or death, 99% of the time, that is EMS. Yet it is the smallest department, right? With the least amount of staff, the fewest amount of vehicles. Yet it is providing the most direct benefit. If I had to choose, right? Do you want someone to respond to, I don't know, like, you name it, some kind of criminal incident, or do you want someone to respond to your heart attack or the actual gunshot wound, right? It's the EMS call that you need. So I don't know. I just feel like the budget's a little bit backwards in this, in terms of what people need, right? What is public safety, and what is the service provided? And this is the service that is like the most critical, right? Where you're like, it's not about whether you feel safe or whether something might happen. It's about having, this service come and help you when you need it. So I just want to underscore that.
Yeah, and I will say we did add, we added some positions last year to the budget, and realistically now, thanks to the chief's program, there is some, I think we're definitely heading in a direction where we can get to staffing. But realistically right now, we could budget for 300 paramedics, which might be a little more realistic as to what we would need, but realistically would never get to that recruitment level. So, I think as we progress this program and see this develop, that would be ideal, that we could eventually add some more staff, some more ambulances, to make sure we're not
From the other day.
sending things to mutual aid, to make sure our firefighters aren't waiting on scene as long, waiting for one of our units, EMS unit, to free up when they're doing a quick response service, or waiting for mutual aid to come in. So ideally, yeah, but as we're all aware, you have to kind of start that ripple somewhere, and Chief has definitely made a big splash in that. So hopefully 5 years from now, we can definitely realistically look at expanding what we have and what we do.
Yeah, so I mean, that is just, again, and then on top of that, and just like the cherry on top, you guys actually bring in revenue, which is, what is it, 22 million?
22 million projected for this year. That's the highest.
So you actually bring in revenue.
Yeah.
On top of all of that, right? So, I mean, that there's firefighters, do the firefighters bill for an EMS call? No, right. So I'm just saying, I do feel like this Freedom House Academy, while it is not like the drastic reimagining of public safety, and of course, it's hard, the ship turns slowly, but this is absolutely a first step, right? Like at least bringing EMS up to par with police and fire, where we do our own training, right? Like we have, and that's sort of been a long-standing thing, like the police academy, the fire academy. So I'm very glad. Thank you so much for all the work that you've done, and that's all for me.
Thank you,
I'm a
Councilwoman.
fan. I'm a huge fan of EMS.
Thank you, Councilwoman Warwick. And I will tell you, to what you said earlier, I remember you saying last year about your Michigan, being in Michigan, and even where you grew up. I've only grown up in Pittsburgh. I've taken for granted. I guess thought every city had EMS, but
People in this country don't call the ambulance because of the cost.
That's incredible.
They'll get an Uber to go to the hospital.
I never really realized that. And, I think for the most part, Councilwoman Warwick and Charlene covered most of the things. I do have a couple little things. Back to the Freedom House. I mean, this could be our sole recruiting unit, basically, right? And without going to outside or coming in with your own certification, basically. And that's kind of what you've sparked. And of the, was it 9 that graduated?
9 that initially graduated, yes.
Okay. Are they city residents? Are they
Yes.
mixed? They're all city residents.
All of them are city residents. The qualifications that you have to have at the time of application, you have to be a city resident. You have to be at least 18 years of age, and you have to have a driver's license. So what I've heard from each and every one of them, I've always wanted to go to school to be a paramedic or EMT and couldn't afford it. A couple of them live right around the corner from my house. So yes, they're all city residents.
Well, I love that even more. I wasn't sure if that was a requirement. So it's a requirement to attend Freedom House.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful. Other than Union Fire and Union Police, all public safety. All city
Yeah,
employees
have to be.
residents, including all EMS staff.
As it stands now, and as I hope it stands after negotiations.
stands
Yes, I gotcha. So no, that's incredible. I love that you're hiring from within, of course, because they have to. They could also, if they wanted to come from outside, move to Pittsburgh. But you're picking people that actually live here, which is
Well, it's important to me because I grew up in the city.
Yeah.
I still live in the city. I love the city, so,
Right.
and I don't know.
yeah. So talk to me about this. So they graduate as EMTs, and you're talking about putting a program together to convert those EMT graduates into paramedics. Paramedics much more skilled, higher pay, and much more schooling. What would go into that? I mean, what would you need to expand? For instance, you have 9 graduates now. Next year, hopefully, you'll have one class a year there. You can do.
We
or
have
2
6 in class currently.
Okay, so, I mean, within a calendar year, how many classes do you think you could graduate? Just one, or?
It depends on the budget, but yes, I mean we can graduate however many. It's a 12-week program.
Right.
My pipe dream,
Right.
which I'll speak it into existence, is to, like we are currently overstaffed with the EMTs.
Right.
One of the difficult things about going through paramedic school is the time. The class is full time. You have to do clinicals, and when I went to paramedic school, I worked a full time job, so it was extremely difficult. And one thing that we've learned is that in order to set people up for success, you have to give them the tools for them to have it. We want to be overstaffed. We want to take at least 6 to 8 EMTs off the street, and their sole goal is to go to school, and that will be taught in-house. And on the weekends, they can contribute to the service by working special events. But that way, just like with the Freedom House EMT program, I think the success has been because our instructors are focused on them succeeding. We've purchased a great program that the instructor can actually see where the deficiencies are and focus on that deficiency instead of saying, hey, study chapter 3 all over again, where there might only be a couple things in chapter 3 that they're deficient in. Right. So having programs or classes taught in-house is paramount because they're being taught by people that do the job. So there's that understanding.
Right. And the EMTs that we graduate, again, the shortage really isn't in EMTs. It's wonderful that we have, that Freedom House is functioning as it does. Medics are the problem. I think Jeff said 29, down 29.
We're down 29.
Down 29. And of course, without getting into the negotiation side, and I will say, I think it's advantageous while you're at the table, not speaking of any specifics, that you have Jeff Tremmel here, who at one point was at this table, representing the union. So here he is, representing management, and I'm sure that helps your negotiations as you go along. But his experience on both sides of the ball are good. But paramedics being the problem, I know, and again, I don't want to tread into negotiations, but is there a lack of available wannabe paramedics within the city of Pittsburgh?
It's nationwide.
Nationwide. Right?
Being a paramedic is college level education.
Right.
It costs a lot of money. It's very time. It takes a lot of time. For what most paramedics make, and I think the city is very generous in their pay, but they stay in school a couple months longer and become a nurse or a PA. So, but we have to make those jobs more attractive, and the way that we do that is to offer it. to give them the tools that they need to be able to do that. And that's where I think my focus is. That's why I think there has been this success rate. I already have pretty much all of the 9 graduated. When are you starting a paramedic school? I want to go to paramedic school. So it's just like that want and that desire is there. We just have to make sure we have the resource.
Sure.
Provide
I wonder if the foundations would help you out on that. Such a successful EMT output to come in and help pay for their education beyond that until you get up and running, or maybe build you a school.
How about you,
better yet, right? And then fulfill your dream, right? Your pipe dream. So, anyway, that success is wonderful. I love it. I hope somehow we can figure out how to create more paramedics within the city of Pittsburgh. I'd hate like hell to lose residency. I know that's not in my purview, but if we don't have enough, just like the police, just like fire, it's hard to. They don't have residency anymore, so it's expanded the amount of people they can turn to, obviously. So the I spoke to the internal paramedic program, and that's what you would like to start, whether it's a training or actual school. And maybe they could work, if you can control the classroom, maybe you could have them still work as EMTs out there to help pay and, get through the schooling. So I think you'll have more control over that if we can actually get you school. The hospitals, we talked about the hospitals. We know they don't have ambulance services. I heard Councilman Charlin say the other day about if we were to reach some sort of, pilot program or, they don't like pilot, but with a program where they could help us out. We are delivering their patients, right? And, one way or the other, whether it's through a pilot, whether it's through cooperation, whether they come voluntarily and know the condition, because you have here really half of the Equipment Leasing Authority Board at this table with Mr. McDevitt and Director Schmidt and myself. So we're well aware of the issues that are ongoing with vehicles. I personally wish that we would have bought you a whole new fleet with that American Rescue Plan money, but that's no longer possible. We're going to have to deal with the issues as we come along. And, I know you said you wish you had 8 more. I run a business. Vehicles, I retire them. They go into my spares, right? And I've been doing that for years and years. I think the important thing is if you could have brand new vehicles and then get the best of the bunch and put them into the spares. How many brand new vehicles, if every unit had a brand new vehicle, are we talking?
Sorry. Counting all of our units, including special events, or just the primary?
Well, let's just say the primary.
The primary, we have 13, 18, counting the rescue trucks, 20, and then 8 spares on top of that, and 1 spare EMT truck. So my math I lost in my head was at about 22.
Yeah.
23.
That sounds about right. So we're waiting on 2 still?
We're waiting on 2. They should be. They were taken
All
at
paid
different
for.
times.
They're paid
but
for.
Yeah,
We're
they're paid for.
Yeah. And when we get them, Jeff, do we have to upfit them? Is that what we have to do? Or
No,
okay,
they'll come in. The
They're
only thing
completely
they'll
done.
need-
They're ready for service when we receive
They'll
them.
need labeled.
Unlike police cruisers, which we have to fit, but so they're already.
Yeah, when
ready
they
to
come
go.
to us, they'll have lights,
okay.
radios.
And they're 500 and some thousand. Is that what you said?
575.
It's not bad when you're comparing them with fire engines, So it's still very costly though. That's really it for me. I think you all do a great job. Our public safety in general was top notch across the board, but EMS, I will tell you, is top notch. Again, I didn't realize until Councilwoman Warwick came on board that every city I thought provided this service. I just took it for granted, but I tell you, Bart, from the time I was a little kid, they're top notch. They're A1. You're on your way to getting the necessary EMTs. We know the vehicles. We will take care of that. Let's work on those paramedics and that school of yours, I think, and then there's no stopping you. So, do you have anything else you want to add, Bart?
I just want to make a quick plug for anybody out there who's listening. For the Pittsburgh Public Schools has a CTE program
Yeah.
for public safety. They have an ambulance in there. They have a fire truck in there. I think they might have a police car too. I'm not sure, but it's a good program, and it's a great
nice.
way if that's, if you're a young person who,
Yep.
sounds fun to be in public safety, that is definitely the program to go in the ninth grade, and that you'll have one foot very far forward in that
And
path.
can I ask one last question as to EMTs? What do they max out at in salary? I mean, can
I
they
don't
can they
really-
afford a house? Can they, I mean, what kind of?
Yeah, I mean,
I
current,
I would say yes. Excuse me.
They make over 40,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Over
yes,
50.
yes.
currently EMTs do. So they make, for 2025, it's planned that they'll make 2207 to start, and then at the top level they'll make 2575.
That's just a start.
Yeah, and then paramedics will, and this is without the current negotiations are an increase to this, but
Yeah.
under the TA, and then paramedics top out at 39.23, but then there's crew chiefs which make $40, and then obviously as you go up through the ranks, there's more options. But it is and then there are, fortunately and unfortunately both, there are a lot of opportunities for overtime. But unfortunately right now there's too much opportunity for
Yeah.
overtime.
Well, since
so.
you brought that up, obviously, I say the same thing. I mean, some overtime. I mean, for me, when I'm 25 years old, I'm hungry. I want to make money. I want the overtime, right? But we got to be careful for the folks that we have to force the overtime on. So I don't know how that mixes. And again, that's your collective bargaining units that will hash that all out. I've seen the overtime rates, and that's just normal. When we have a lack of paramedics, when you're 29 down, you're going to have that. Not to mention the outside services that we have to support. So I love the direction you're going in. I think you're on the right track. It's inspiring. I think I've seen you at your class at Freedom House, on the clips anyway, on the news, and it seems like they're in it to win it, like you. And I hope they can become paramedics and make Pittsburgh their home forever, like the rest of our paramedics. So, thanks again. Anything you all want to add before we cut out?
No, thanks to the chiefs, and thanks to all of our providers in EMS for what they do every day.
And
Okay.
thank you so much for having us and, asking these pertinent questions. I mean, this is definitely a service and a program that's near and dear to my heart. And anybody that comes into our EMT class, I always tell them, hey, I started with the city of Pittsburgh as an EMT. So it's definitely a wonderful job to have. So thank you so much for having us.
No, thank you, Chief Gilchrist. You guys have been wonderful. So if there are no further questions, I'm going to make a motion to recess.
Thank you.
I need a second, Barbara. That's it, right? Yeah, thank you. We're done.